listen when he speaks the truth, the clear choice of the troops. Oops, I know you'll never hear that on the news, but the scoop.
Welcome back to the Journalistic Revolution. In this next segment, we're going to be talking about the report that recently came out about China deciding to no longer use U.S. dollars in purchasing oil. And then we'll move on from there to QE3 that just was released this recent past couple days, and the events that followed immediately after that, the downgrading of the U.S. Credit rating, and pretty much how they're all linked.
Now, if you didn't watch our first half of this episode, then please go and watch it real quick, because in it we discussed the tragedy in Libya and how it is a distraction to something that is very, very important. Because even though what happened is a tragedy, even though someone died, a human being died, many human beings died, that's not what destroys a nation. Unfortunately, they're not going to swim over here and start doing this to us. Yeah, there's terrorists. I understand that there are people who incorporate the tactic of terrorism, because terrorism is not a nation. You can't fight it. It's a tactic. Anybody can lift it up and pick it up and use it at any given time. But it's a distraction from this. What this is a coup taking place right in front of us, where China is going to become the new super economic power of the world.
Well, let me go back and elaborate on his point. Yes, death is very sad. I'm very aware of that personally, and how loss of life is tragic. Believe it or not, unless we start dying in droves over here, the real crisis right now is going to be in our own country, when gas prices, food prices, everything is going to start going up, and you're going to see a real poverty issue, as if there isn't one already, in this own nation.
And it's going to be quick now. See, they have been doing things to stem this collapse from happening. QE1 and 2 were, well, stem. Unfortunately, their reactions are what's causing it to speed up. And the very first thing we're going to discuss, though, is the dollar no longer primary oil currency as China begins to sell oil using the Yuan. This was on September 11th, the same day as the attacks. Coincidence?
Yeah,
that's up to you.
Kind of like when Obama signed the NDA 2012 on New Year's Eve. Who was really paying attention?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they're correlated. That's up to you. Go research and figure it out for yourself.
Folks, if you go back in our recent history, you're going to find a lot of things were done through,
using deception.
Yeah, I mean, using deception, whether it was a terrorist attack or whatever you can research them. A lot of things were signed, done without anybody noticing, because something else was going on that captured the attention of the people.
Yeah. Anyway, this is from Pastor Lindsey Williams, former Minister of Global Oil Companies, during the building of the Alaskan Pipeline. For the first time since the 1970s, when Henry Kissinger forged a trade agreement with the Royal House of Saud to sell oil using only U.S. dollars, announced its intention to bypass the dollar. China announced its intention to bypass the dollar for global oil customers and began selling the commodity using their own currency. Now, this hasn't happened since the 1970s. The U.S. dollar, a lot of people don't understand this, is the global economic currency. And the reason so is because it was worth the most money. So everybody figured, we'll just always buy and sell oil in this money, and then that way it's all fair.
And then there's a great video that Ben Swan does where if you look at the dollar and how it's downgraded in price versus the cost of oil was tied to the cost of gold, and it really explains how the price of oil has gone up over the last 30 years, and we'll post the link at the bottom of the page.
All right. Now here are China's sources of oil. Okay, and this is in the thousands of barrels per day. You got 740,000 barrels per day coming from Saudi Arabia. Now they're one of our biggest oil allies, and so that means Saudi Arabia is going to have to not sell in the American dollar to China.
Or not sell at all.
Or not sell at all to China. Iran, we know they're going to sell to China. They're 544 barrels of oil, 1,000 barrels of oil today. Venezuela, 460,000 barrels per day. Russia, 299. The Sudan, 217. Oman, 275. And others, 356,000 barrels per day. Now, we get our oil from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Russia. These are our suppliers, and they're gonna be trading in non-dollars. Now, according to Lindsey Williams, the most significant day in history of the American dollar since its inception happened on Thursday, September 6th. On that day, something took place that is going to affect your life, your family, your dinner table more than you can possibly imagine. Just a few days ago, China made the official announcement. China said that on that day, our banking system is ready, our communication systems are ready, all of our transfer systems are ready, and as of that day, Thursday, September 6th, any nation in the world that wishes from this point on to buy, sell, or trade crude oil can do so using the Chinese currency and not the American dollar.
Now, I don't know if any of you noticed, because at the beginning of the summer, gas prices started to rise, got up about $3.50 per gallon. Oh, that's in Orlando, Florida. I know it gets higher in some other parts of the country. But since that day, the gas prices have spiked, and I don't have an actual figure. It's just from my own actual observation driving around as a human with a vehicle. The gas prices have gone up significantly in just a week. So if that doesn't tell you right now how bad this news is, that the Chinese have decided to go away from the U.S. dollar.
And gas prices started going up when they started publicly discussing this.
Yeah.
Which was a little more than a year ago. I remember reading about this, and I was like, this is a bad sign. This is not good. I mean, granted, I would love to see a complete change in economic structure, but at the same time, this is going to hurt a lot of people all over the world. It's going to change a lot of things.
The U.S. dollar, in order for the United States to compete now with China and other countries that decide to use different currency, they have to use the exchange rate. And means, let's say the U.S. dollar, it's worth more than this, but we're just going off hypotheticals for easy math. Say the U.S. dollar is worth 50 cents. And say the Chinese dollar is worth $1. Well, that means the U.S. has to spend $2 to make up $1 just to purchase that oil.
Which kind of makes sense on the next topic here in a bit, but we're going to talk a little bit more about China here. This announcement by China is one of the most significant sea changes in the global economic and monetary systems, but was barely reported on due to the announcement taking place during the Democratic National Convention last week. Again, if you didn't watch the previous episode, distraction. They had this big show, and not that the Republican National Convention wasn't any more of a show. There was a distraction to distract from the fact that they were cheating the rules against Ron Paul, but theirs was a distraction that this was a big announcement. The news should have been all over this, but because the Democratic National Convention was happening, it wasn't even covered. And ironically, since September 6th, this month, the U.S. dollar has fallen from 81.467 on the index to today's price of 79.73. It's
about a 2-cent drop almost.
Yeah, and that's
roughly.
Boom. I mean, it's the 12th, 13th. And since
15th.
China, 50, I'm way off. Since China is not a natural oil producing nation, the question most people will ask is, how will the Asian economic power get enough oil to affect the dollar hegemony? That question was also answered by Lindsey Williams when he pointed out a new trade agreement that was signed September 7th between China and Russia, in which the Russia Federation agreed to sell oil in China and to China in any and all amounts they desired.
Also, you guys gotta remember Iran's tied in there too, because Iran is allies with Russia and China. And they, in fact, Russia and China actually spoke out against any kind of intervention in Syria because they knew it was not true. They knew it was propaganda. You can go watch the UN videos of them.
And this attitude of,
they're all,
well, screw them, we're Americans, America. This attitude of that, right? We're going to go pick on the little guy. That's Iran. He's involved with his two big brothers, China and Russia, in some sort of trade agreement going on that will be beneficial to all three of them.
And by the way, China threatened the United States if the United States decided to take action against Iran.
They made innuendos.
Yeah.
But we're going to pick on this little brother, and we're going to awaken a giant. Now, I'm not advocating for cowing down to these other empires. Well, why are we even there in the first place? Why are we in Iraq? There's no weapons of mass destruction. Why are we in Afghanistan? 11 out of the 19 hijackers were Saudi Arabian. I'm not a truther, but I mean, if you're going to go after the bad guys, go after the ones that make sense. And we're now going to be we're bombing in Pakistan. We're getting involved in Yemen. We have these weird white guys shooting people in Syria. And then this Libya thing's happening. And we got the president's press secretary telling us that these attacks are not protests against the USA.
And you just hear him list off 5, 6 Middle Eastern countries. Is this? And I'm posing the question because I again will tell you to draw your own conclusion. Is this a fundamental takeover of the Middle East? Is this so we can, excuse my French, screw the Russians and the Chinese?
Or is it a takeover because we want to make sure that we have oil on lock when this started happening? I mean, I don't know. It's another question. Is it what he said? Is it what I said? Is it a different, bigger, nefarious plan? Is it just straight crazy ignorance and an inability to make good decisions?
I'm going to paraphrase a quote here, and I don't know how many people caught this, but during the primaries, they had a debate. And it was the very, very last debate of the primaries. And Newt Gingrich, they were talking about the Middle East foreign policy, and he said if it wasn't, if we were able to just drill at our own country, which they are already doing, it'll be in that Ben Swan video. We'll post the link. If it wasn't for the fact if we could drill our own oil, we wouldn't even be in the Middle East. Really? Did Newt Gingrich on national television admit that we were in the Middle East strictly for the oil?
Ooh. Interesting. And here is us biting, coming back to kick us in our butt. Okay. This new agreement between Russia and China also has serious ramifications in regards to Iran and the rest of the Middle East. No longer, now this is for all you sanction-loving, warmongering people, all right? This is for you, because this bodes not well for your philosophy in life. No longer will U.S. sanctions against Iran have a measurable effect. As the rogue nation can simply choose to sell its oil to China and receive yuan in return and use that currency to trade for the necessary resources it needs to sustain its economy and nuclear programs.
Now I want you to pay attention over the next couple months, because, and I could be wrong, but I want to see if over the next couple months, we'll pay close attention to this, if Iran talk starts fueling up like wildfire.
And it will.
And I believe it will. I bet you, well, I'm not going to bet you, I don't got any money. I can almost guarantee it without, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because the last thing I want to do is see another conflict for this country to get involved in. But
or any country for that.
Yeah, that you're just going to hear all sorts of wonderful things coming out of the mainstream media about going to war with Iran.
Now, this gets announced on the 6th, okay? On the 6th, it's announced China pretty much said, piss off America. We're going to handle this with Russia, and Iran's coming along for the ride. And there's nothing we can do about it.
No, there's nothing.
Especially in our economic status right now. Now, what's announced? What is announced is that QE3, and this is announced on 9/11, which is very weird.
Yeah, like the same day as Libya gets attacked on the embassy. So what gets swept under the rug in the mainstream media? QE3.
Even if it's not intentional, it's convenient.
It's very convenient.
Feds QE3. The Federal Reserve will buy a total of $600 billion of bonds under the new stimulus program announced Thursday, known as QE3, or I like to call it QE Infinity. And will look for a U.S. unemployment rate of 7% before it halts the program, i.e. Infinity, according to the median forecast from a Reuters poll on Friday. That was from Reuters. For you guys that don't know what QE is or what quantitative easing is, in layman's terms, it's, we're running out of money, let's print some more. That's quantitative easing. Now,
the Federal Reserve loans money to banks at 0% interest, in which you go to the bank and you take out a loan and you got to pay 6, 7, 8% or even higher, or sometimes lower, depending on how great your credit rating is, which we'll get in the United States credit rating here in a few minutes as well. But the Federal Reserve loans the same money to the United States of our government, and guess they charge the United States interest. The central bank that has no overhead, no oversight, charges in the United States, freely lets them build their buildings in the United States as a central bank, and they charge us interest. Well, guess who gets to pay the interest on that? Our tax dollars, your tax dollars. And I like to call that wage slavery. Wage slavery is when you are working to pay off the debt for someone else. So not only are you paying your own debts, trying to build a life, buy a home, buy a car, take care of your children, you're also paying off the debt. The United States, while they're running around Middle East, spending trillions of dollars on wars.
The Federal Reserve is a fact. The fact is that the Federal Reserve does print money at a deficit already towards the government, and then that the government then loans it to us to a higher deficit than which is allotted to them, and then our taxes go to pay off their debt, while our money and our interest goes off to pay off their interest.
Meanwhile, the dollar's losing value. Prices keep going up. Ooh, when does the cycle end?
Yeah.
And the Fed, folks.
And
the Fed.
Oh, it is $40 billion a month that they're going to buy in toxic mortgages, which also was part of the reason that we had the original housing bubble. You're going to be buying $40 billion a month until the unemployment goes down to 7%. Which, okay, on a good note, the way that they count unemployment is those who are actually receiving unemployment checks. So that'll be running out soon, so the number should drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. And then, and then there's always, government jobs. They could always, build some more roads.
Just to clarify what he said, folks, unemployment's more like almost close to 20% or higher.
Yeah, the true number is like 20%.
Once people either get off of, some people don't even collect unemployment. Some people get off of unemployment. I took an economics class, and there's categories for all these people, and the real unemployment rate is usually about double what the government is willing to come out and say.
Yeah, it's just they cook the books, man. QE3 becomes forever. Now, I want to go all into this because it talks about all the rally that we saw. Okay, so it goes, the U.S. Federal Reserve goosed equities, treasury yields, gold, silver, oil, platinum, palladium, and investor sentiments on Thursday when it announced additional stimulus to spur economic growth. The market got what it wanted. The stocks immediately shot up. James Mayer, chief investor officer at Tower Bridge Advertisers, told Reuters. In fact, the markets got more than expected. As part of the Fed's new scheme, a marked difference from the last two rounds of QE, it will buy $40 billion of mortgage of debt per month. Additionally, the Fed reiterates its stance on keeping interest rates at its historic low levels, extending the time frame out until at least the middle of 2015. So, while you guys are arguing over which president, okay, is going to fix the economy, you got to remember that this is the guy, Bernanke, that making these decisions, that said that the Congress being in control and that it should be a standalone bank because it doesn't need the government gumming up its works. These people have no accountability whatsoever, and you're going to argue over the presidents, but this guy's going to stay in office.
How is that going to create jobs? I mean, I really want to know. I mean, their mind, they're going to create jobs. They're going to drop the unemployment rate down to 7%. But how does buying toxic debt
and also
and then forcing the interest payments to the American people going to create jobs? If you can answer that, then you're better than any economics teacher that I've ever talked to or taken a class from.
Now we have people who are going to be buying oil in a currency that is worth more than ours, which means that we're going to have to spend even more of our money to get that oil. And we're talking on a global market, so that's going to raise oil prices. Then you're talking about this quantitative easing where they're going to print $40 billion a month out of nothing. And you got to remember, they're charging the government for this product, this fiat money. And then they're going to be doing this each month. And then that makes the money that you have currently worth less. And that's just and then it's worth less and you got to buy this oil with it and it's not going to work. And then because the Fed on Thursday said that they would pump $40 billion into the US economy each month until it saw sustained upturn in the weak jobs market, the Edgar Jones cut the credit rating of the US government to a AA- from its original AA rating, citing its opinion that quantitative easing from the federal government would hurt the U.S. economy and the country's credit quality.
I'm going to break in a few sentences back where he was talking about oil. Folks, oil doesn't mean just gas. Petroleum. Plastics. This phone. Packaging for food. His little wristbands. All made out of petroleum oil products. So you can guarantee that it's not just going to be gas prices that's going to be going up. Your food prices are going to be going up. The products that you buy to run your business are going to be going up. Just so you have a fundamental definition of what that really means. Because you drive past the gas station every day and you see that price go up and you're like, holy cow. But then you run to the grocery store and what you might have bought a week ago is going to be up 10 cents and you may or may not notice. All things related to oil are going to go up in price.
Yeah, unfortunately, our entire world is ran on the dead animals of ancient past. And unfortunately, there's not an infinite amount of ancient animals of ancient past. We're going to run out, and the world's grabbing, man. We're using it fast. I know some people say it's renewable and that it gets remade. But until we start making it ourselves to make it renewable, because I know they have the technology, that hemp, other sources, it's not going to get better. And these are the current ratings of from all the standards of the America at this current time. You have Moody's Investor Services rates us at AAA. Fitch rates us at AAA. Standards & Poor rates us at AA+, and all three of those ratings have a negative outlook. They're going to be dropping too soon, and then that drops our credit rating, which makes our interest rate with borrowing from other countries even higher.
including the Federal Reserve,
which then in turn makes the ability for us to buy oil even less, because it costs double and if not triple the amount that it cost originally, which drives everything up, from food, gasoline, products and services. Everything goes up. And then you have to connect the dots. We have a tragedy in Middle Eastern countries all over the Middle East. In Libya, Sudan, Morocco, Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, all these, Tunisia, right? We have all these, and they're all protesting. No matter what Jay Carney wants to tell you, they are all protesting against our occupation. Plain and simple. They do not hate your freedom. Okay, they do not hate Justin Bieber. They didn't even know about the damn Muslim video until we pointed. Well, are you guys mad because of that? And then we try to blame it on Islamic extremists, and they exist. They're out there. I'm not stupid. Okay, they're out there, but they use tactics. And if you read the freaking Quran, the Quran says that they are not allowed to harm anyone unless they are invading their home countries. And as a matter of fact, if you read the Quran, it tells you that they see Christians and Jews as brothers, and that they themselves are going to heaven or are accepted by Allah. You are listening to crap, okay? Are there Muslim extremists? Yes. There are also extreme Christians. Do you remember they were blowing up abortion clinics back in the 60s and 70s?
And 80s.
And the 80s. And are you going to say that represents us? That doesn't represent me. I'm a Christian. I'm not blowing up abortion clinics. I'm not out fighting against gay rights. I'm not trying to legislate my morals. But there are Christians who are. And there are Muslims who do it, and they're bad people. They're bad individuals. It's like saying all libertarians are Paul-tards, or saying all liberals are pot-smoking hippies out of college, or that all neocons are, white-blooded Yale graduates. It's just simply not true. You're creating these divisions amongst people. There are free people, and there are not free people. That's it.
I'm going to give a little math equation to do. You could do it in your head. You could do it on paper, however you feel like doing it. Earlier, he said that the U.S. dollar dropped 2 cents. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of money. It's 2 cents. You picked that up off the ground. It dropped 2 cents. Almost immediately after they announced QE3. Now, that's not even that's like within a week of announcing QE3. Now, this is going to be going on for, through 2015, you said?
2015.
2015. Now, we were at 81 cents. We're now at 79 cents. Take the next 3 years times 12 is what? 36. Multiply that times 2, that's 72 cents. Where did you say our current dollar was worth? 81 cents?
No, currently
it's 79.
It's at 79.
Based on that math alone, our dollar is going to be worth 9 cents or less. I mean, granted, it might drop a penny here and might not drop this month, but it dropped 2 cents within a week, or within 2 days of dropping the news about QE3. So do that math in your head, folks. The dollar is tanking. The dollar is tanking because of the Federal Reserve and because our failed foreign policies. And it's only going to get worse unless we all, as Americans, whether you want to believe in that term or not, I understand some libertarians don't classify themselves like that. If we come together as a people, whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican, whether you're Libertarian, Green Party, Constitution Party, whatever the case may be, and we start holding our government officials accountable.
Nothing's going to change until then. Your environment will not get better. These wars will not end. You will not find a better job. You will not be able to save the animals or eat vegan as long as they have regulations against you. You will not be allowed to get married if you are gay. And if you are black, you will still be oppressed. And you will be oppressed by the same damn people who have been oppressing people since the beginning of time. Those in power. And that's not our government. That's the Federal Reserve.
Now, there's an old phrase. They said that the greatest trick the devil ever played on everybody was convincing people that he didn't exist. And I equate that to what our current government is like. I'm not saying that they're the devil. What I'm saying is they create this false paradigm about Republicans versus Democrats, liberals versus conservatives. And that's the argument they want us to have. They want us divided as a people. They don't want us to come together in one thought, in one mind, with one goal, because then they lose their power. The more they keep us divided, the more power we give them. And I think, really, until we come together as a people, we're not going to be free.
I'm going to end it with this, okay, guys? This is how I'm going to end it. This is the Federal Reserve, right? They're our nation's bank, so they're a part of the government, they try to say. So, but they work independent outside of it, but they're supposed to be a part of it. We owe them about $17 trillion because they do stuff like this. So they're a part of the government. Well, why don't we just say, we find it illogical that we owe ourselves this money since you are a part of us. So let's just go ahead and wipe that debt clean. And when they say what we all know what they're going to say, well, no, we're a private bank. You owe us that money. Then we go, well, you're under arrest for counterfeiting money since 1913. We're going to go ahead and confiscate everything that the bank owns and distribute it amongst people once again. Because they can't have it both ways. They're either a part of the government or they're a private bank. If they're making money and they're not a part of the government, that's forgery, that's counterfeiting, that's uttering false obligations against the United States of America. And let's just shut them down. Take a cue from Iceland. Look that up.
No, really, look it up. When we say look it up, we really mean look it up.
Live free now.
That was powerful. Dude, this is a powerful show. We got angry. I think people should honestly take notice.
I gotta get myself out of this town, and I don't know where I'm gonna be found. This time's for sure. I gotta get up, get out, and get down. This I know. I'm sick of waiting lately, laying around.